Hey everybody, how are you all doing? I'm going to pose a question to you first before we start tonight. Throughout this whole story of Moses, from the time they were in Egypt until now, you don't have to go back, just in your head, who do you think your favorite character was? Some people like the rebels. Other people like the good guys. Some people like the main character. It's up to you. I ain't going to judge nothing. Moses has been back up on Mount Sinai. He chiseled some more tablets and took them up with him, and God inscribed them again. And the details were just as detailed as before. First, we're going to give him some sandals for his feet. Da, 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 da. That don't look so bad. Okay. I guess I could have left a little more of a dark tint in the face, but I didn't. And maybe I'll correct that another time, but not now. I've already painted it in. Hebrews have more of a tan skin. And I'll show some hair coming out here. Now, when he came down from the mountain, he had a glow about his face. They describe it as radiant. And that's kind of like, ooh, look over there. But that's, you know, he had been in God's presence. Now God is always, you cannot look on the face of God, because there's an instance where he had Moses close his eyes. This was when he was starting to lead the people with the smoke and the fire again, the pillars of cloud, and then the pillars of fire. And he had Moses close his eyes until he had passed him. Then he could open him up because he could see his back, but he could not see his face. So evidently at that, whatever was going on at that point, this is silver, metallic silver. So whatever was going on at that point, it must, if it was just him and God, or at the whatever was going on. I mean, God is everywhere all the time, but he isn't specifically in communication with one particular person all the time. That's called a prophet. And sometimes it describes in the Bible that sometimes he would speak to them in dreams. Sometimes, with Moses anyway, he would be in one place with him. But Moses had been in the presence of God, and his face was radiant. So I'm putting all these metallic silver things around his face. So much so that the people would not look on his face, because I don't know if it was that much light or if it was because of a fear of something that they had. Maybe, you know, it's like when you look into a light bulb, you look straight into a light bulb and it just can kind of half blind you. That's what I'm thinking it must have been like for them. So what Moses did was he made a veil, which I'm not going to put on here, but he made a veil because he would meet after that. They had what they called a tent of meeting. He would meet Aaron and the priests in there, and often God would meet him in there without, all by himself. So but when he was in the presence of God, even if God was in, fire or smoke or whatever, or cloud, when he was just himself in that presence, he would, he would come out and he'd be radiant. So he would talk to the people so that they would know what he had been told. He would give them the messages that they were sent and cover his face with that veil, because they could not stand to look straight on his face. There. His eyeballs are kind of hanging from his eyebrows. That's okay. I'm not going to sweat it if you don't. Okay. And he probably had brown eyes, but anyhow. And a lot of the stuff that Moses had with him at the time, I do hope, yes, I am recording. Jeez, scared myself. A lot of the information that God sent Moses down with had to do not just with the Ten Commandments. Those are the main thing that we hold on to. And they are very, very important. But he was also sent with, well, even at the first time, but then he had to, put it all on there again. He talked about, if they had a Hebrew slave, they could only have him for 7 years, and then they had to give him something to start a new life on. And if they had, property and somebody, like if they had a cow and somebody took the cow, they had to either return the cow or somehow make good on that. There were certain things that, if somebody murdered another man or murdered someone, then they would be stoned or put to death somehow. All of this stuff. But what really, really is important is that God had him call all of the crafted, or people good at certain crafts together. And there was certain ones that were good at sewing and weaving. Some were good at building, like carpentry. Some were good at weaving the cloth. He was very specific about the colors and how they were to be woven. And they were supposed to braid some a gold strand of gold. The metallurgists, the ones who had artistic talent that could decorate with the gold and stuff too. This was all, I can't go through all of it, but this was all in the instructions and exactly how they were to do it. God was very, and always has been, very exact in his specifications of something, including the Ark of the Covenant. Remember Noah. Noah, he gave explicit instructions to on how to build the ark, with everything to do with the tabernacle, what clothes the priests were to wear, how they were to be made. Everything went into this. And I'm going to show you a picture. I am not going to try to draw it because it's just so detailed. What I want to do is I want to show you something that I found, and I found that I can use it as long as I give the site, because it says on there, and it's thetorah.com, but it's a depiction of the whole encampment with the tabernacle. And the tabernacle went along with it. And anytime that God filled the tabernacle, he would take, if he would take up all the space in the tabernacle with his cloud or whatever, nobody could go in. Moses, because nobody else would fit. But if he didn't completely fill it, then they could go in and do things. But how to wash themselves in order to be present, how to do the offerings, and everything is covered. So if you go to BibleGateway.com and just look up in Exodus and stuff, they have just headings. You don't have to read everything, but there's headings on how to do each and every kind of offering. So, anyway, here's Mr. Moses. And I don't think he looks too bad. And no, he does not look like the alien or whatever it was that did that with its, I just looked at it and I thought, oh no, that's going to look like that thing on Alien. But it does not. It's not. That's the radiation coming off of his face. And that is when and why he would cover his face with a veil. Now, it had to be a transparent veil or something, with some holes that he could see through. But it was so that the people could look on him directly and understand what he was telling them. Okay, there is no way I could begin to draw this or paint it. It's so detailed, and I wanted you to see that. This is an illustration of what the tabernacle in the desert looked like. They traveled with this thing. The Jewish Israelite people traveled with this thing. And so it would have probably been torn down when they moved and re-erected when they settled again. Look at all the tents around there. There were 600,000 men alone when they left Egypt. So imagine that, plus all the women and the children, their servants, because, they had servants. And I thank you for sticking around. Don't forget your favorite character or your favorite entity or character in this whole story. And you don't have to write why, but if you do want to, you can. Because, it might be a specific thing. Some people kind of like the bad guy a little bit. And it doesn't mean that they're a bad guy. They did something they shouldn't have done. They're a little bit rebellious. But I love all of you. Have a good day. I love you. And I'll see you tomorrow.